Special meeting. Mrs. Bash, you want to take the roll and see if Mrs. Whitfield is here?
District 1, Barbara McQuinn.
Here.
District 2, Chuck Shaw. Here. District 3, Karen Brill. District 4, Erica Whitfield.
Here.
District 5, Frank Barbieri.
Here.
District 6, Marcia Andrews, absent. District 7, Deborah Robinson.
All right, we have a quorum with 6 board members present. Mr. Superintendent, do you have any items to add or withdraw?
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add and nothing to withdraw.
We have one item pulled by Ms. Brill, POL A1. Are there any other items anybody wants to pull? We need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Mrs. McQuinn, seconded by Ms. Brill. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Any disclosures or abstentions? Seeing none. Superintendent, you have some comments?
Yes, sir. I'd like to start by recognizing that this is School Volunteer Week. Our district applauds the more than 44,000 volunteers working in our schools across the county. Their efforts are valued per hour at a whopping $24 million annually. But most would agree that their contributions are priceless to the students and staff who they support. On behalf of our entire district, we'd like to thank all of our volunteers for their service. I'm also grateful to employees of the public supermarkets located in Jupiter and Tequesta for supporting Jupiter Elementary School last week during the National Public Serves Day. More than 100 employees with supplies in hand worked all day beautifying the campus, creating a walkway, and replenishing the school's butterfly garden. As educators, we know that an aesthetically pleasing learning environment has a positive effect on our children's self-esteem and desire to learn and grow. And finally, congratulations to Boynton Beach High School's choral group, Dimensional Harmony. They are heading to London once again to perform in the city's International Choral Festival. The Honorable Duncan Sadies, Lord Mayor of Westminster and great-grandson of Sir Winston Churchill, will be at the school to formally invite the students later this month. Mr. Barbieri, I know that West Boca High School has also been invited by Lord Mayor as well, and they are performing in the New Year's Day Parade in London. What a great honor and experience for these students. They will surely impress audiences across the pond. And actually, for those who don't know, I spent the first 10 years of my life across the pond with their great talent, so just as they have here in Palm Beach County. So great job, everyone. And this concludes my comments for this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Mr. McQuinn?
A short comment, but I don't want to forget. So I'm saving many up for next week. And I hope that Dr. Robinson will correct me in any way that I present this incorrectly, but I did have the privilege of attending, I think it was just last Saturday, March 30th, at Palm Beach Lakes High School, and many thanks to our Department for Diversity. I can't remember the entire name now, but African American, Hispanic, and I'm going to get the department wrong, but all of their hard work in putting this together. I know that I can tease about that because Dr. Robinson says it herself. It was scheduled from 10 to 12, and it started at 10, and it ended at 2. So, but she took full credit for that, and she did ask the audience's permission. But it was teaching our history a status report. And you always learn something new when you go to programs. You know that you know most of what's going to be presented, but do you take away one thing new? I took away one thing new that really struck a chord with me, and it was that because there's a lot of discussion about, number one, teachers finding the time, and you know that Dr. Robinson has spoke frequently about infusing African American history into not just having separate lessons on African American history, and it's still difficult, and I pointed this out, even though we tell our teachers you can infuse it into the curriculum, it's not tested. So if it isn't tested, what is their motivation to do that? And that's something that I think needs to be worked out at the state level. The whole testing thing is to be worked out at the state level. But one of the things that struck the chord with me was that helping our teachers to understand that we don't tell our students that they are descendants of slaves. I had never heard this before. They are descendants of people who were enslaved. And so it struck such a chord that I've Googled it several times, and there's a lot of information out there about that. But I think if there's one thing that we can do differently, it is to say this is a circumstance that people were in as a result of societal conditions, but they weren't slaves. They were human beings who were enslaved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McQuinn. Ms. Brill?
Thank you, and I'm going to also save most of my comments till next week, but I just want to share with all of you, the superintendent, staff, and my colleagues on the board that yesterday I attended the ChildNet Care for Kids Luncheon, which was benefiting foster care, children in foster care, and I cannot tell you how many people came over to me, and there were hundreds there, to say thank you for what you are doing for the children in foster care. They could not thank me enough for what the district is doing for all of the children who have challenges in their life, not only the foster care children, but it was the first time that there were just so many that I felt I had to share it with you tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
The only thing that I will say is thank you for mentioning the town hall meeting and what you learned, because we've said that a lot. Like, nobody decided that they want to grow up and be a slave, right? And that's not an occupation. It was a social political environment that caused people to be captured and enslaved. And it's a whole different mindset, and it's a completely different expectation if you understand the ancient African kingdoms, and Imhotep, who's is the one I'm going to always point to as a physician who is the true father of medicine, not Hippocrates. But it's really a different mindset in terms of expectations on the part of the child and the adult, if you know that. And that's one of the many reasons infusion is so important. So I thank you for coming for the 10 to 12 event and staying till 2.
Mr. Shaw?
Last week, I spent most of the week in Tallahassee. I'd like to just highlight some things that are really some good news. One of them is that in some of the initial conversations related to the state budget, the guess is that the budget may reflect more the governor's budget and not the House budget. So we'll see what happens during conference. There were several different things that I had the chance to deal with. One of them was to appear before the Senate Appropriations Committee and talk about the continuation of what's right now the pilot on the academic acceleration program we got in elementary. It's AMP, and the direction was it was passed through the committee unanimously, and gives us hopefully some stability in maintaining that program into the future as a statewide program instead of a pilot. There were also some discussions related to facilities, some issues that I had a chance to talk to a new representative from the Miami-Dade area on early childhood education issues. Bill was just passed through committee that would enable Palm Beach County, among others, to again apply to be charter districts, which would return us the flexibility that we used to have many years ago. And look at it. The most difficult issue that it looks like we're facing in Tallahassee right now is the philosophical issue of vouchers, and a pretty consistent objection from public school districts on the issue of vouchers. However, that particular issue is tied to a bill that has some really good things in it. So there were several legislatures that asked about how we felt about that issue, and it seemed to be consistent from most school districts that there were a lot of good things in the bill, and but we still don't like the issue of vouchers. So my guess is that bill will likely pass. I can't remember now the number. It's either 70-30 or 70-50. But those were 70-50, 30. But those were moving along, and really some very interesting things. There's the biggest issue that we will face, and I know that I can't discuss it and neither can we, but on Friday, The Florida School Boards Association spent a significant amount of time related to the grand jury being impaneled statewide related to the school safety. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Ms. Whitfield? Yes, she has no
No,
comments.
thank you. I'm fine. I'm here. I'm sorry. It took a second to get off the mute.
Do you have any comments?
Nope, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, don't breathe on us. Hope you feel better. The only item that's been pulled from the agenda is POL 1. Does anybody want to pull anything else? All right, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. Brill. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The first item and the only item, Mr. Superintendent, is POL A1.
Mr. Chair and the board, I recommend the board approve development of proposal policy 5.3221, use of medical marijuana, low THC cannabis by qualified students in schools.
Before we take a motion on that, just to let the people here from the charter schools, the board just approved all of the items that are on the agenda, so there will be no further action on those items. They've all been approved. We need a motion on the superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. Brill. Discussion, Ms. Brill?
Thank you. So I have two questions, and I keep reading this over, and these two questions kept popping out at me, and I don't know which one is the better one to give first, but they're general. We're treating medical marijuana differently than we treat other medications, clearly. The first question is more general, and that is, are we leaving ourselves open to being sued by somebody for not treating medical marijuana the same as any other medicines that a child may be prescribed?
May I respond, please? And then I'll defer to my team if I leave anything out or misstate anything. But this policy essentially follows the state statute. So I think that we are treating this substance as required by state law that has made it allowable in this usage. So you all can add to that if there's anything else to add.
It is different because the medical marijuana cannot be prescribed, so other medications are actually prescribed. Medical marijuana can be ordered or it can be recommended, but it cannot be prescribed. So that's a big distinction within the legal parameters.
Thank you. And so then my follow-up question is, I try to put myself in the parents' shoes, okay? And medical marijuana has been known to help children with seizures. Well, I have a child who's not a child anymore who has seizures. So I'm looking at our policy, and it says that in order for, the child, the student, to be administered the medication, that it has to be administered by their primary caregiver. Well, I was a single working mother. I would have lost my job if I had to go back and forth to school to give my child medication. So is there a way in the policy I know we're following the statute, but we have to realize that, we have people that are working parents. Is there a way that they can delegate that authority to another adult in their family or in their world?
So unfortunately, the statute, the language we're using mirrors the statute, and those are the statutory requirements. The statute indicates that the caregivers if the patient is a qualified patient is a minor, only the minor's parents or legal guardians can be the caregivers.
May I just make a point of information? That is the essence of a lawsuit that we are already engaged in, and that case is still pending and will be going to hearing in June. So that very issue has been addressed in this lawsuit, and there might be others in the state. But at this stage, following the statute and the parameters around the statute for this substance is what we are bound to do.
Okay, so may I give a so as a follow-up then, my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong with this type of statute, is that when there's a statute, we have to follow the statute. We can be more lenient, correct? We can't be more severe, or there is no wiggle room in this? Because I know that, like with the ESC laws, we can allow things, you know what I'm talking about, Ms. Pincus. So.
Right. So in this situation, the statute makes it clear that when you're a minor, only the caregiver and only a caregiver can be your parent is allowed to administer. There is one exception only built into the statute, and that's for hospice. For people in hospice, somebody can administer to more than one person. So we're not, the statute does not contemplate the situation that unfortunately the parents you're referring to are in. The school district did not create that situation. The statute did. So we're just following the letter of the statute, and we don't think that it would be permissible for anybody other than the parent to administer. So that's what we've set up.
Final follow-up then is just that clearly then this is not for this session, but maybe it's something that we need to work, whether individually or whatever, with our legislative delegation to see if there, is a way that something can be done. Because I just see this as being very onerous for parents that work and don't work around the corner from their child's school. Thank you.
Any other comments? Dr. Robinson?
So I'm just curious, legally, what's the difference between prescribing and ordering?
The statute sets up a completely different process for this substance. So there is a different procedure than a doctor prescribing on a prescription pad. There's a process for the patient to go through. There's a process for the doctor to go through, and it's not considered. It's definitely a different process for this substance.
I guess instead of a prescription pad, you have an order pad, I guess. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Unless anybody has anything else, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Shaw, second by Dr. Robinson. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.